guys, welcome back for episode number 166 of the weekly playback. I have quite a few games to get through today, but we'll see how many I can get through because I'm under the weather. My body has forsaken me. Like, I thought after getting sick after Essen that it would be unlikely for me to get sick again before going to Iraq. Well, that is not true. On Tuesday, I started having body chills and body aches, and that they were pretty bad on Wednesday. Then Thursday, I felt fine. Like, I was like, oh, great. That was just, a very small little thing, and now I'm perfectly fine. And then Friday, my throat started feeling sore, and then Saturday, which was yesterday, my throat was really sore, and I had a lot of congestion, and I still have a lot of congestion. So I don't know what the heck is wrong with my body. I really miss the days when we were forced to wear masks, because I kid you not, I did not get sick once during COVID, which was amazing. And prior to COVID, I used to get like a bronchitis yearly. I'd gotten like strep throat. I used to get sick like at least a couple times a year. So maybe I should just start wearing a mask every day. But I suppose if I'm the only one wearing it and no one else is wearing it, then maybe it wouldn't do much good. And honestly, I feel like not no one, but very few people wear masks these days. And but maybe I should anyway, and not worry about what people think if I look funny or whatever, because I really miss not getting sick. Anyway, so I've just babbled on for a long time, so let me just get into the games that I played. Let's talk about Red North. So Red North is a 2025 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by James Dickinson, and the art is done by Giacomo Vici, and it's published by Mighty Boards. And this is a review copy that I received at Essen, if I remember correctly. It had to be Essen because it wasn't at PAX. So this is like a hand management and a little bit of a deduction game even, and a little bit of like a conflict or battle game, not really battle, but like resolution kind of game. So I'm going to talk about a 4-player game. So in a 4-player game, you're going to play with all 5 outposts. In round 1, no one controls these outposts, but you are trying to gain control of these, and I'll talk about how you do that. And they have special abilities. So in rounds 2 and 3, if you control an outpost, 1 or more, you will have the special abilities of the outposts you control. So for setup, each person is going to be dealt a jarl card, and each person is going to be given 1 hammer. And then you're going to shuffle in the rest of the jarl cards with all of the raider cards, and raider cards come in all 5 different colors that match the outposts, and they're all numbered 2, so they all have a strength of 2. So you'll shuffle all the jarls and raiders together, and you're going to create a muster, 5 muster decks. So I won't call them deck groups. So in round 1, you have these 5 hero cards, which again match the different outpost colors. You're going to draw 2 cards from the deck, but you do this before you actually shuffle in the jarls, I believe. So you probably want to shuffle, I think you probably create the musters before shuffling the jarls, but I cannot remember for sure. But you're going to add 2 cards to each hero card, and that's going to create a muster group. So if you end up passing, you will select one of the muster groups and add it to your hand. So before starting the game, each player will be dealt 6 cards from the deck. So from your cards, so let's just pretend that this is my hand. I'm just gonna create a hand right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when I start the game, I'm going to have 6 cards and 1 jarl card. So simultaneously, everyone is going to do the deployment phase. Simultaneously, you're going to decide which 3 cards you want to place face down. Now, whenever you have a jarl, that's going to add a strength of 1 to each card to the left and right of it. So if I put down my jarl in the center like this, and I had this face down, then this is actually a strength of 3, and the purple is a strength of 3, actually. So you're going to place 3 cards face down, and then after everyone's done that, then starting with the start player, you're going to take your turns. So on your turn, you can do one of the following actions. Reinforce. You can turn a card in your party face up and add a new face up card to one end of your party. You can never separate and add them in the middle, so you're going to add them to one end or the other. So that is reinforce. You can withdraw, and there might be instances where you want to withdraw. So you will return a face down card from your party back to your hand. You can inspire. You can add a glory token to a face up card in your party, and this is going to add a +1 strength to that card. you can invoke, and this will only happen in round 3, where you can use a god power, and the gods you would have recruited in round 2 once you passed, and we'll get to that. You can promote. You can place a champion token on a jarl in your party. That's only if you control the blue outpost, so that can only happen in rounds 2 and 3. Or you can pass. Once you pass, that's when you select one of the muster groups and add it to your hand. Once everyone is passed, then you are going to resolve and see who controls each outpost. And if you still have any face down cards in your party, at that point you will reveal them and they will be face up. And so some people might have more cards than others because they reinforced, or in subsequent rounds they controlled an outpost that allowed them to draw extra cards, and so on, which I did. So in the game I played, I had control of the purple outpost for rounds 2 and 3, and this allows me, after the awarding of outpost, to draw 2 cards from the deck. So I had extra cards due to that. So in resolving to see who controls each outpost, you're just going to add the strength of the raiders that match a certain outpost in your party, and then see who has the highest strength, and they are awarded that outpost. So if my strength was a total of 4 for purples, and I had the highest, then I would get control of the purple outpost for the next round. And then in the next round, this is going to be adding a strength of 1 to my party. So that is indicated right on the outpost, my purple party. My purple raiders, that is. So each outpost will give you additional strength for raiders of that color in your party if you have any. Now, if you win an outpost and other people also had raiders of that color and they did not win, they would get as a consolation prize one of these glory tokens. So anytime you don't win an outpost but you played raiders of that color, then you can gain a glory token. And you want to do that because they can be useful for end game scoring. So let's just talk about these outposts. So the purple one, again, will allow you to draw 2 cards from the deck after the awarding of the outposts. The red one, which would add a strength of 3 to any red raiders you have in your party. After deployment, give the first player token to a player of your choice or keep it. So in the first round, the first player token is randomly decided. However, in subsequent rounds, whoever controls this can decide whether to be the first player or give it to someone else. The green outpost, while you hold the breaker token, you win all ties. So if you control the green outpost, you would be a tiebreaker for any resolving of certain outposts or whatever. The yellow one, after deployment, pick 1 raider card from the discard and place it face up to either end of your party. So that's what would happen if you control that one. And then the blue one, as an action, place the champion token on one of your face-up jarls. That jarl now grants +2 in both directions rather than +1. So there's a special token associated with this outpost. If you control it, you would get to add it to a jarl, and that would add +2 to both cards that are on the side of that jarl. So from round to round, you are trying to, win these outposts because that's going to give you points. So at the end of round 1, for each outpost you control, you will gain 1 point. At the end of round 2, for each outpost you control, you will gain 2 points. And at the end of round 3, for each outpost you control, you will gain 3 points. Now, when you have your muster added to your hand at the end of round 1, once you pass, you now have hero cards for the subsequent rounds. So these have a strength of 4, so they're very beneficial, of course. And then for the following round, so in round 2, when you pass, you will be able to select a muster that consists of a god card plus some raider cards or whatever. So these god cards will give you a special ability. So my god that I had collected was Odin. So when I played my turn and I activated my god power, I was able to collect 2 victory points because that's simply what he did. For example, some of the other gods, Thor, take the unclaimed hero card into your hand. So there's going to be an unclaimed hero card, so this would allow you to take it into your hand, which is pretty cool. Freya, draw 1 card and add it to your party face down. So all of these gods have cool abilities that you can invoke in the 3rd round, because again, they would have been the part of the musters for the end of the 2nd round. So the reason that this game is so cool is because you are not always working with full information, because not everyone is going to do the reinforce action where they're going to flip a card and then add another card to one end of the party, because they may not have enough cards in hand to do that, or they may strategically want to hang on to those cards for a subsequent round. So you're acting with imperfect information throughout this game, which I really like. So you're kind of trying to, like, you know, bet like, oh, maybe this person, you know, their face down card, maybe it's of this color, maybe it's not of this color. Like, do I want to add, you know, a glory token on this card to, you know, secure my win for this outpost? Like, you know, you're trying to figure different things out based on imperfect information, which I really like about this game. I think it makes it a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this game. I was pleasantly surprised by it, because the last kind of small box Viking game I played, I absolutely did not like, and that was called, I believe it was called Viking Raiders, and it was like a never-ending card game, which did not enjoy, but I actually really enjoyed this. And I actually had it signed by the designer too at Essen, which is really cool. So yeah, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, I think it's a really fun small box game to play, and everyone I played with enjoyed it as well. So again, thank you so much to Mighty Boards for giving me this review copy. So if you're looking for a fun Viking themed game to add to your collection that plays fairly quickly, that I think would be a good kind of filler game that is fun and thinky, but, you know, still engaging, yeah, check this out then. Alrighty, so let's move on. Let's talk about Forest Shuffle Dartmoor. This is a 2025 game for 2 to 5 players, designed by Kosh, and the art is done by Tony Lobet and Judith Piella, and it's published by Lookout Games. And this is a review copy which I received from Asmodee. This is not an expansion. This is a standalone game in the Forest Shuffle universe. So, I mean, this universe is natural. So it's like, I think the moors of England maybe, or something like that. So let's see. The hilly landscape of Dartmoor offers diverse habitats for plants and animals, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you're creating a unique moorish landscape for flora and fauna. So again, you're going to be placing animals, flora and fauna, and trying to place them strategically just in order to score the most points. So in this game, when you prepare the deck, you're going to shuffle in these 3 winter cards into the bottom third of the draw deck, because those are going to be your game end, like, indicators that the game end is coming soon. And then when the last winter card is drawn, it's going to show you that the game has ended, and it will end immediately. Everyone is going to get a random cave at the beginning, which might give you some kind of an ability or whatever. So like, for example, my cave allowed me to place 1 card from the stack as a moor into my forest. So the stack of cards, all of them are a moor on the back. So you'll see that every card on the back side is a moor, and you cannot place the backside moors unless like a special ability allows you to. However, you will come across moors on the other side within the stack of cards. So just like in the regular forest shuffle, there's going to be trees, there's going to be shrubs, there's going to be different kinds of insects and animals. So you want to place your insects and animals and flora, fauna as strategically as possible in order to score the most points and get a really good engine going. And I got a really good engine going in my game, which is why I won. So you have this clearing board, and whenever you pay for cards, the cards you pay are going to go onto this clearing board. And whenever there's 10 cards on this, the clearing will get cleared. And if you ever need to draw a card, you can take cards from the clearing. So you'll see what's on offer. And if you don't like anything from the clearing, then you can draw from the draw deck, you know, bearing in mind that that's going to bring you closer to game end, because, you know, you'll get closer to that winter card. Now, anytime someone plays a tree into their forest, into their area, you immediately draw a card and place it into the clearing, and the board reminds you of that here. And in order to play a card, you have to discard cards from your hand. So in order to play this tree into my forest, I would need to discard 1 card from my hand into the clearing, and then I can place it down. And if that card matches this color, this orange color, then I immediately get to do this bonus here. So some of them will have these binoculars on them, which indicates a bonus if the cards you discarded all match that color there as indicated. Then you would get to do that bonus action immediately. So basically in your forest, you're going to have trees and moors. Or maybe shrubs. So trees can have animals on all 4 sides. So you can have an animal on this side, you can have an animal on this side, you can have an animal on top, and you can have an animal on bottom. So they can be surrounded on all 4 sides. And again, you want to get good synergies going here in order to get the most points between all your fauna and flora. Moors, on the other hand, they can only have animals above and below. However, you can have 2 animals above and 2 below. So you can have a total of 2 above here if you wanted, or you can have a total of 2 below it if you wanted. So they all hold a total of 4, but only moors on top and bottom, and trees 1 on each side, top, bottom, left, and right. So that is how that works. So again, the game end will be triggered once someone draws the last winter card, and then you'll go to game end scoring. So of course, you know, all of these trees are going to give you different scoring abilities. The animals and bugs are going to give you different scoring abilities. The moors are going to give you different scoring abilities. So you're just trying to score the most points possible. So at the end of the game, you're going to look at the score sheet, which is very handy, and you'll score points first for all of your trees. So look at the scoring condition of each tree and add those points together. Then you'll look at the scoring condition of each moor, add all of those points together. And then you'll look at all the cards above your moors and trees, add that total to the score sheet. Then you'll look at the cards to the sides of all your trees and add that to the score sheet. And then you'll look at the cards that are below trees and moors and add that to the score sheet. And if you had any cards in your cave, those are 1 point each, and then whoever has the most points will win. So it's just, you know, very similar to the regular Forest Shuffle. It's just another game in the Forest Shuffle universe, if you want to call it that, natural universe. You know, it would be really cool if they actually came out with, like, for example, a desert series. But then in that case, it wouldn't be called Forest Shuffle, it would be called Desert Shuffle. But that would be pretty cool. With like desert animals, I would actually really like that. Yeah, maybe they should do that. That would be really cool. I would actually really, really like that. I would get it. Just to see really cool artwork of desert animals, I would love that. So yeah, so that was Forest Shuffle Dartmoor. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. If you like the regular Forest Shuffle, then, you know, this is something you would enjoy. I'm not sure that it's necessary to add to your collection if you already have the other one, you know, but if you want to see some kinds of different flora or fauna, then it might be worthwhile adding this into your collection. So again, thank you to Asmodee for sending this my way. So let's move on. Let's talk about Quacks the All In 2025 edition. So this is a 2 to 5 player game designed by Wolfgang Warsch, and the art is done in this edition by Ryogo Toyota, and it's published by CMYK Games, and this is a review copy that I received from Asmodee. Now, I already owned Quacks of Quedlinburg and the various expansions, but when Asmodee offered the opportunity to receive this as a review copy, I said yes, because I thought it would be really cool to have Quacks all in one box. So just very convenient. And I know that, you know, a lot of people were like iffy on the artwork. So from playing this game, I played a 5 or 6 player game of it. 5 player game, I think. I think it only goes up to 5. I think, yeah, I played a 5 player game of it because it only goes up to 5. So I played a 5 player game of this recently, and honestly, the artwork was not like putting me off or anything like that. Like, you know, when you're playing the game, it's not like you're so focused on the artwork that you're like, oh, this artwork, I don't like it. You know, you're focused more on the gameplay and you're having fun, and I really did enjoy my play of this recently. So I actually played this on my birthday for my birthday game night, so that was a lot of fun. So again, it contains everything. So I'm not going to talk about how it plays because most people already know how Quacks plays. But I just wanted to, you know, again, just show some of the things. So when I got this, I added all of the various tokens into little boxes. So I might actually throw away the insert because I bought these little containers to hold all of the tokens, and I think it just makes setup and playing it a lot easier. But then if you have these, then it's hard for everything to fit into the box, and you might have a little bit of lid lift. So I think I'm gonna get rid of the insert and just keep those containers instead. But again, you know, this contains all of the different expansions with like new artwork and stuff like that. But it's just really, if you don't own Quacks, I think that this is a good addition to get because you know, it has everything in it and it's just convenient. You don't need to open up different boxes and decide what you're going to play with, and it plays just the same. So if you're looking for, you know, Quacks and you don't own it, then it's a good one to get. So yeah, so you know, no one that I played with was put off by the artwork. Like no one even commented on it, to be honest. So, and it kind of grows on you, just like most games. Like I remember when I first got Red Cathedral from De Beer Games, the reason it took me so long to get that game and to begin with was because I did not like the artwork and the aesthetic of the game. But it ended up being one of my favorite games and most played games in the year that I got it. So, you know, that just goes to show, you know, don't necessarily judge a game by its artwork, because it could end up growing on you, or you might not even notice it, like in the case of this game, when you're playing. So, you know, I just wanted to pull it out and show you guys because I did play it, and I just wanted to talk about my experience in playing this game. I thought that these bags were way too big. However, you know, one of my friends who says he has big hands really appreciated the really big bags. So for him, he really liked these big bags, the fact that his big manly hands could fit into them. Whereas I thought like, oh, I would try to like put in all the tokens in one kind of like corner, one side of the bag, and then kind of shuffle them there and pick them out from there because it's really big. One thing I learned while playing this, and I did not know this before, is that you're not supposed to ever look in your bag. And I can't remember if I ever did this when I played this game, the many times I've played it before, because I thought like, you know, I understand when, I feel like, okay, I understand when you're pulling chips that maybe it's not a good idea to look in your bag, because like you might try to like be like, all right, this chip is kind of over here, so now when I draw I can kind of like, you know, reach in this section of my bag. So for that reason I can understand that you should not be looking in your bag to see what chips you have. But when you're buying chips, like what is the big deal then? So I want to know what you guys think. Like, is it okay to look in your bag when you're buying chips to, you know, determine what you should buy? Like you're not drawing them at that point, and you'll give them a good shuffle before you start drawing them. I feel like it should not be a memory game. I feel like it shouldn't be a game of memorization, like, oh, I bought this chip in the first round, I bought this chip in the second round. Like, you know, for people like me with really bad short-term memory, it's going to be really difficult to remember what chips I bought. So I want to know if you know, have a house rule that you can look in your bag when buying chips at least, or not. And leave your reasons in the comments below if you're absolutely against it. And if there's a good reason for being against it, then I'll be like, okay, sure. I understand then. And I, you know, will say that, yeah, no one should look in their bags even when they're buying chips. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So yeah, so thank you to Asmodee for sending this along. It's just a very nice, convenient addition to have, so I appreciate it, and it is just a really fun game. So thank you, and yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about La Habana. So it says that this is a 2009 game, but this is a newer edition published by 25th Century Games. And so I'm not sure if it's a 2024 or a 2025 game, but I just received this recently as a review copy at PAX Unplugged. So this is for 2 to 4 players. It's designed by Reinhard Staup, and the art is done by Michael Menzel, or in this edition, it's actually done by Ian Paravel, and it's published by 25th Century Games. So now this is a really cool card kind of action selection game with set collection and stuff going on. It's a really interesting game. So I'm going to talk about how it plays. So each person is going to have a set of cards, and each person is going to have the same set of action cards in their hand. So let me just find, not that it matters, I'm just going to get the purple ones because I play purple and I'm wearing purple. So yeah, so each person is going to have the same set of action cards, just different colors on the back. And your action cards are numbered from 0 through 9. So the 0 card has no special ability on it, as you can see here. There, where is my 1 card? 1 is the guardaespaldas, which is a stop sign, which means that no one's like special abilities can be performed on you. 2, the mendigo, you would simply gain 1 coin. Another 2 card, reciclaje. This would allow you to recycle a card, and I'll talk about what that means. It's because when you play cards, you're going to be putting 1 to your discard pile, and you cannot play with that card again unless you get it back in your hand by playing this card. Number three, Ruina. So this means you can get rid of one of the construction cards that is on display, but please don't actually rip it up like this card shows. I feel like it should have just shown like a symbol of a hand, just like kind of maybe throwing away a card. Because imagine if someone took this very literally and actually ripped the card. That would make me very sad. Another number 3 card is Escombros, which allows you to pick up the rubble tokens, rubble blocks from the central building card, and we'll talk about what that means. Number 4 is obreros. So this will allow you to pick up some workers, either 2 or 1, depending on whether you're the first player to play that card in a round, in that specific turn, round, whatever. The arquitecto, and that will give you a special symbol that you need sometimes in order to build cards, but also pick up a worker. Number 5, ladrón. This will allow you to steal money from other players. Number 6, the receptador. This will allow you to steal building materials from other players. Number 7, contrabando. This will allow you to draw blocks from the construction bag blindly. And again, 2 if you're the first player to play this card, or you can look into the bag and pick one that you want, and any subsequent player would only get to draw 1 card from the bag blindly. 8, Empresario. This will allow you to take all the money that appears on the central building card, divide it by 2 and round it up. And then finally, number 9, Mama. This allows you to take the half of the rubble rounded up and half of the other construction materials rounded up from the central building card. So how you play is on simultaneously, everyone is going to select 2 cards and place those face down. And the 2 cards you play are going to be the actions you get to do in that round. So the lower number of the cards will always appear first. So for example, on my first turn, if I wanted to play these 2 cards, it has to be 23. It cannot be 32. The lower number always has to come first. And then everyone will reveal their cards. Now, cards that allow you to do a special ability, some of them need to be resolved in a certain order. So the lower the number is always going to go first. If there's a tie, and believe me, there will be ties. Like there was one time where I think 3 of us all played the same number, and then 3 of us all played the same number again in the subsequent round, and so on. So there's going to be ties. How you break ties is you see who has the lowest prestige, and they get to take their turn first. Prestige is determined by who has already built buildings and has prestige points in front of them. And I'll talk about how you build buildings, but basically there's going to be 2 rows of building cards on display, and you're going to be trying to build these and put them in front of you in order to gain prestige points. And whoever reaches 15 will trigger the game end and will win. The game will end immediately once someone reaches 15 points. And then you will see who has the next highest points for second place and so on. You're going to resolve who goes first based on who has the lowest prestige in front of them. And then you'll resolve your cards. Cards that affect other players, some of them you can only play if there's someone who's actually going after you, who's taking a turn after you. So if you're the last player in turn order and you played a stealing card, you can't use it on someone at that point because you were the last player in turn order. Once you've done the things that are listed on the card, if you're able to, at that point, you can then build up to 2 cards. Whenever you build, they have to be a card that is on the end of one of the building rows. So again, there's going to be 2 rows of building cards, and you can only build cards that are on the end of a row. However, what you could do is, for example, if I was able to build this and then remove it, now this would be on the end of a row. And if I was able to build that, then I can remove that as well and build it immediately if I want to. So cards must be on the end of a row in order for you to build them. So as you can see, this one requires 2 yellow bricks, 1 white brick. This requires 1 green brick and 5 money. Everyone starts the game, I believe, with 2 money and 1 rubble. So rubble is plentiful in this bag, and 5 rubble can equal any 1 construction material of a different type. So again, rubble is very plentiful, as you can see here. And then there are different construction types. So you have the green, the yellow, the red, and the white. So those are the different construction materials. And then again, you have these workers who are in limited supply that I dropped a piece, I'll look for it later, that you're going to be trying to collect. And then there's money. So you're just trying to build buildings before others in order to get to 15 points first. This is the central building card, which starts with 3 building materials on it and 3 money on it. Now, at the end of every round, there's going to be more added to that. You're always going to draw blocks from the bag and add some more to it, and then add more money to it. So how much do you add? I believe it's 3 pesos and 3 random bricks. Yeah, so it's always going to be 3 and 3 that will get added to this card, which is why, you know, when you play certain cards, you can then take things from the card, the central building card. Now, after everyone has played their cards, you now decide which one is going to go to your discard pile, and then the card that's remaining has to be part of the next number you're playing. So at this point, I recommend that when you decide which number you want to play next, you don't put it to the left or the right of the card that remains in front of you, because that may give other players an indication of what your number is. Instead, I would suggest that you just simply put it on top, and then once everyone's done that, then you reveal, and then you add it appropriately to the left or the right of the card, because again, the first number has to be the lower number. So you're going to continue in this fashion until someone wins by reaching 15 points. So again, these cards, you know, basically you're going to end up playing at least one card twice in a row, possibly more if that's the card you choose to keep on keeping and getting rid of the other card. And again, there is a reciclaje card if you want to get back one of the cards that you had to trash and add it back to your hand so you can play it on a subsequent round. I really enjoyed this game more than I thought I would. Like, I think it's a really fun game. Yes, there are abilities where you can steal from other player. That actually didn't happen once in our game. I think people were just more focused on just getting what they wanted in other ways to try to build cards. No one in our game, I think, had played. Actually, I think someone did play a card where they tried stealing from another player, but because they were last in turn order, they weren't able to use their ability, now if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's going to be times where maybe people want to steal from you. So it's a balance between hoarding materials to try to build something bigger, or quickly spending your materials and just building when you can, so people can't steal as much from you. And it's just really clever that, you know, you have to get rid of a card and then keep one so that you can't keep on using the same cards over and over. So it's a way for you to really end up cycling through the deck of cards that you have, these action cards. Like, I think it's just a really cool game. And I really like how the cards on the front, you know, they're just these black and white drawings, and then when you build them, they're just these really pretty buildings. And I really like the art style in this game, by the way. Like, for me, this is one of 25th Century's like winning games. Like, I really like this game. You know, there's been a few hits and misses for me when it comes to 25th Century games. So for example, I really liked Big Sur, but by the same designer. Really did not like Colorfield, but I really enjoy this game. I think it's a really nice small box game. It's not, you know, super quick, but it's not super long either, because it's a small box card game and it's really enjoyable, and everyone I played it with really enjoyed it as well. So yeah, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out, and that is called La Habana. So again, thank you to 25th Century Games for sending this my way. So let's move on. Let's talk about Graft. This is a 2025 game for 3 to 5 players, designed by Max Anderson, Zach Dixon, and Austin Harrison. The art is done by Kelly Nakamura, and it's published by Ivy Studio. And this is a review copy that I received from Ivy Studio at PAX Unplugged, and it's a special media edition, so I'm not sure how this differs from non-media editions. Maybe it just has more basic components. I'm not really sure. But this is a card drafting game. So I really enjoyed this game. It's based on the same universe as Tend, which was their really big box, amazing roll and write game with like these incredible dice and these scratch off cards. So it's from the same universe as that. So you're gonna have like the same kinds of things kind of appear in this game, like the same kinds of like plants and animals and so on. So how this plays, and I've played like 6 games of this now so far. So I've played it with a few different gaming groups and everyone has enjoyed it. So I really like this game. So that's why I've already played it that many times. So first of all, each person is going to decide which tokens they want. So each person will get 5 tokens in their own player color, and then each person will take a matching player aid card. So here are the player aid cards. So on the one side, it tells you like what you'll do on your turn. On the other side, it tells you how you ship cargo, and we'll talk about what shipping cargo means. And then to start the game with, each person will have 1 ship cargo card, and these all look the same. And then you're going to randomly put out 2 gold achievements. So you'll shuffle these gold achievement cards, and these have that really cool holographic on them. So you'll shuffle these and randomly put out 2 of these, and then you'll put out 3 silver ones. Again, shuffle and choose 3 randomly to put out. Okay, so then you're ready to play. So you're going to shuffle these cards and give 5 to each player. So when you are given 5 cards, you are now going to have a total of 6 cards in your hand. Okay, so with 6 cards in your hand, let me just randomly grab some cards to show you what you are doing when you play. Okay, so when you're playing, everyone, you're going to again have 5 cards that were randomly dealt to you and your ship cargo card. This is a pick and pass game. So you're going to choose a card to play in front of you into your current shipping lane. You're going to place it face down, and then you'll pass the remaining cards to your left. So when you are playing cards, what you're looking at is you're looking at the left-hand side and seeing the restrictions and how that card will score. So if this was the first card I played into my shipping lane, every subsequent card after this cannot be pink. If I have a pink, I'm going to bust in that whole lane, minus the card that would have caused me to bust is going to go underneath my player aid, and those will just be worth 1 point at the end. So you are looking at these symbols on the side to determine what cards can go in your shipping lane after that, if any, which cards cannot go in your shipping lane after that card, and put it down. And so there's kind of like a gambling element to this, because like, let's suppose I had a hand, and let's suppose I'd already put down, you know, this card, and sorry, let me get a good thing here to show you, because the first time I played this game, I think that this was like one of the first cards I played, or something like this, that had a restriction of 3 here. So what does this mean? So this means that the only color I could play after this card then is pink, because now I'm forbidden from playing green, yellow, or blue. So this might very likely cause you to bust, because what are the chances that every card after every hand you get after this is going to have pink cards in it, or special other cards that you might be able to use like recycle that don't have any special color, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So if you are fearful of busting, what you then want to do is play your ship cargo card. So let's suppose you got a really good lane going that is worth maybe like 5 points. These lanes are not super high scoring. I feel like you'd have to be really lucky to get a really high scoring lane. But let me just show you some cards and how they score, for example. So like, for example, this one, if you played this into your lane, for each of those cards you have, you would get 2 points. Some of them will tell you if it's this position, it'll get this many points. So if you played the artifact as the 4th card in a shipping lane, then this card itself would be worth 4 points. This card would be worth 15 points if it's the 8th card in a lane. And again, I think it's really hard to get up to 8 cards. The Z coin is a special card, so there's not too many of these. This would allow you to ignore all card restrictions to the left of this card. However, it's minus 7 points when you score that lane. But again, it'll allow you to ignore all the card restrictions that have been previously played. This one would allow you to score 2 points per each unique yellow card in that lane. So, you know, again, all different kinds of points that you can score in different ways. So you're going to look at the bottom left to see how cards score. So let's suppose I had a lane of 3 cards, which, you know, is scoring me 5 points, and I'm really fearful of busting with the next hand that would come to me. So in that case, and there's no cards that I can play, or maybe there are cards I can play, but I'm fearful that I will bust with the next hand, that there would be no cards to play in the next hand, and you have to ship when there is a card that you can play, actually, because otherwise you will bust. So if you have a hand of cards and at least one of those cards is a card you can play, and you're fearful that the next hand will have no cards you can play, then you definitely want to ship your cargo on this turn. Because how ship cargo works is you're going to play your ship cargo card, and then when everyone reveals the card, instead of this being at the end of your lane, you now take the ship cargo back into your hand and take a card from your hand and add it to the end of the lane and ship that entire lane. So there actually has to be a card in your hand that would not cause you to bust when you're shipping your cargo. If there's no card you can play, then you've busted. So once you've shipped your lane, all those cards are secured and cannot be messed with now, and they will score you points in however they will score you points. And that's when you will check to see if you've met any of the achievements, the gold or the silver achievements. If you are the first person or among the first people to score an achievement card, then you will put your marker, your token, on top of the card. So if two people completed this at the same time, they would both put their tokens on top of this card. So for this, you would need 2 yellow and 2 blue in the lane that you shipped, and that would give you 10 points at the end of the game. Every subsequent player who achieves this would get 5 points. So the gold ones are worth 10 points if you are the first person to do them. The silver ones are worth 5 points if you're the first person to achieve them, and then 2 for everyone else. Some of these will tell you that you need cards adjacent to each other. So for example, this one you have to have a blue and a pink adjacent to each other in your lane that you just shipped. So once you ship a lane, that's when you can check and see if you met any of those achievements and put your tokens on top of them. Now, suppose you got a hand and none of those cards can be played and they will cause you to bust. So in this case, you cannot ship cargo because you have to have a card that you can play in order to ship cargo. So in this case, you're going to take the card that would cause you to bust and of course put it face down, and then when everyone reveals the card, you're going to keep this card. It's now going to start your next lane, and all the other cards would go under your player aid, and those are your bust cards, and they will just be worth 1 point at the end of the game. So that's what happens when you bust. Now, if someone successfully ships cargo, and multiple people can ship cargo on the same turn, because you don't know who's doing it, you're not announcing to people that you're shipping cargo as you're deciding to play that card, but once someone has shipped cargo, then everyone will draw back up to 6 cards once they've picked up the hand of cards that is meant for them. And again, your hand of cards will always include a ship cargo card. That is not something you hang on to. That's something you pass along with your remaining cards. So this is how you end up getting more cards in your hand, is when people ship cargo. So I really like it when people ship cargo. It really makes me happy because then I can hopefully get cards that I want that will not cause me to bust. But yeah, as you can tell from the number of times I've played this game, I really like this game. Like I said, I think I've played it 6 times now. So I think it's a really fun, fast playing, not super fast, but quick enough to be a filler game. So I think it's a fun filler game that I think is really thinky, and it's got that push your luck element to it that kind of makes it a little bit risky and a little bit more fun to play, in my opinion. However, I played it at different player counts, and so I've played it at a 5-player count, and I've played it at a 3-player account, and I definitely recommend this at a higher player count. Definitely more enjoyable. There are going to be cards you have to remove for a 3-player game, as well as for, I believe, a 4-player game, but I can see this being way more fun at a 5-player count, and it definitely was. So highly recommend this at a higher player count if you choose to play it. And yeah, I really enjoy this game. So that was Graft from Ivy Studio, and I do hope that they will make more small box games from the universes that they've already created. Like, oh my god, I would love it if they created a small card game from like the Mythic Mischief universe. Like, I think that would be really cool. So yeah, so again, thank you to Ivy Studio for sending this my way. Really enjoyed it. So thank you. So let's move on. Let's talk about Crops. This is a 2025 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Gianpaolo Razzino, and the art is done by Mirko Properzi, and it's published by Little Rocket Games. And this is a game that I purchased from Essen. I am a huge fan of Little Rocket Games' games. Like, I love Hens, I liked Coney, and now this. Really enjoyed this. There's a lot more going on in this game than the previous 2 games I mentioned. Like, there's more to keep track of in this game. So this is a set collection pattern building game. So like in their other games, you are going to be creating a grid pattern building grid in your game. So you're going to have a grid by the time you finish that will consist of 3 columns and 4 cards in each column. So a total of 12 cards. So these cards, let me just show you what they consist of. So there's different types of vegetables. So you will see that on these cards, there's going to be a symbol that's associated with that vegetable type. So this vegetable is a blue symbol. Then you're going to see 2 half symbols. So you'll see a half yellow here, a half red here. You will see what vegetable it is. So an icon to help you distinguish the vegetables, because the beets and the radishes look similar. So you really need to look at the leaves to determine which vegetable is which one. And then you will see its moon phase scoring. And then you'll see 2 halves of a moon. So each card is going to contain things similar to that. So each card is going to contain, and sometimes it'll contain 2 different moons halves. So this one has half a white moon, half a black moon, and so on. And each card is going to score differently depending on the moon phase. So what you're trying to do is score the most points. So you're also going to get these gold cards. So at the beginning of the game, you'll be dealt 4 gold cards and you're going to keep 2 of them. So I'm just going to show you 2 as an example. So here are 2 gold card examples. So you'll see that each one has a top scoring and a bottom scoring, because you're going to decide whether this goes at the top of a column or the bottom of a column. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you are going to, well, first you start with a certain number of cards in hand, okay? So I played a 3-player game of this, and we each started with 3 cards in hand. Yes, you will always have 3 cards in hand. And then you're going to create a market. So you're going to have a market of 6 cards or 8 in a 4-player game. So in a 3-player game, you will have 3 cards on top and 3 on the bottom, and you'll have 3 gold cards. So it's going to look just like this. And then this shows you that each person has 2 gold cards and 3 vegetable cards in hand. So on your turn, you're going to follow these steps in order. You're first always going to swap. You're going to exchange one of your 3 cards for one of the cards in the top row of the market. So you must swap one of your cards for a card from the top row of the market. Then you must take. You can take one crop card from the second row of the market or draw blindly from the deck. If you draw blindly from the deck, you have to keep that card, obviously. Then you are going to play a crop card. So for the first card, you can just play it anywhere, but then subsequently, each card you play must be placed orthogonally adjacent to a card you already played, following the 4x3 rule. So 4 cards in a column and 3 columns in total. So, and then you will refill, then you can play a gold card optionally at the top or at the bottom of a row column. So you definitely want to finish a column. You don't necessarily actually have to finish a column before you play a gold card. You might know after having 3 cards in a column that you want to play a gold card, and I would recommend doing that on certain occasions, because otherwise the game will end before you have enough gold cards to place on each column then. And that did happen. So there's a reason I won this game, was because I took the opportunity after a certain number of turns to make sure that I was playing gold cards, so that each column of mine had a gold card on top as well as on the bottom, whereas the other 2 players had columns that did not have gold cards on top or bottom. So, and then once you play a gold card optionally, then you refill, and you can only play 1 gold card during that step of your turn. So you are trying to match up symbols. So if I matched up, for example, 2 gold symbols like this, at the end of the game, I'm going to count up the number of gold symbols I created in this way and multiply it by all the vegetables that have a gold symbol on them, and that will give me a point value for that thing. So you're going to end up scoring there's going to be different things you're scoring for: the moons, the symbols, the gold cards, and then the total. So I'll talk about the moons at the end. So you are trying to connect various seals so that you can get that multiplier for vegetables of that color that you have. So if I connected, 4 if I had 4 blues completed like this and I had a total of 3 blues on vegetable cards, that would be 4 by 3 for blues, and that would give me a total of 12 for blue seals. And you would do that for each vegetable type for which you have completed the seals in your grid. So that's the first thing you will score for. Moons. You will see that each card has a specific moon scoring. So for example, this, which I guess are radishes, I think. So radishes will score 2 points if the dominant moon phase is either this or this, or they will score 1 point if the dominant moon phase is this. So you will determine which is your dominant moon phase. So again, when you're placing these cards, they're going to connect and form different moons throughout your grid. You're going to add up and see which one you have the most of. So if I had the most of, for example, I just want to do an easy one, black and black, because that's what I was aiming for, in fact. So if I had the most of this moon, which is a whole black moon, so that is called, they actually all have names, that's called the new moon. So the different moons are listed here by type, and there's a hierarchy in case you have a tie. So if I, for example, tied and I had the same number of new moons as well as first quarters, then you're going to take the one that comes first in priority order of moon phases. So if I had an equal number of this and this, I would actually end up scoring for new moon instead. So then you're going to look at all the crops that you have, each and every crop, and see how it scores for your dominant moon phase, which could end up losing you points. Like, so for example, this card with new moon loses a point. So, you know, while you're playing and placing down cards, you're also paying attention to how different vegetables score for the moon phases, because you want to avoid getting vegetables which are going to cause you to lose a lot of points for the moon phase that is going to be dominant in your field. So that's another thing that you're going to score for. And then finally, you'll score for your goal cards, top and bottom. So again, you don't have to complete a row before you decide to put down a goal card. Like if I already had, for example, 3 of these peppers in my column, I might decide to put this tucked in at the top of my column and know that I'm already scoring for that in that column. So that would give me 3 points per pepper. And then likewise for cards at the bottom. If you, so obviously you can't play a card at the bottom until there is a card at the bottom of that column. So, again, it's 3 by 4. So depending on how your cards are situated, you might be able to play cards at the top before filling a column, or cards at the bottom before filling a column, depending on how your grid is situated and so on. So you're going to score points for all of your completed goal cards if you met them. So again, if you place this at the top of a column, it would be 3 points per pepper. If you had this at the bottom, if you had those symbols appearing on the vegetable cards, then in that column, that would give you 8 points. So when you see those, that means on the vegetable card. It does not mean the connections that you're making, because from the connections you're making, you're not going to get 4 symbols anyway. And then whoever has the most points will win. So yeah, so that is the game. So, again, anytime you collect a goal card, I don't know if I mentioned this, you can immediately take one from the market then, what's on display, or randomly draw one from the deck. So, that's how that works. So you'll always be getting more and more goal cards as well. But that is how the game plays. It's just a lot of stuff to keep track of as you're drafting cards and trying to create a grid that will score you the most points. Like, you're paying attention to the seal symbols, you're paying attention to the moon phases. Yeah, just a lot to keep track of. But I enjoyed it. It's very thinky. There could be quite a bit of analysis paralysis, maybe a bit too much for a game that is supposed to be a little bit quicker and I think on the lighter side. But again, it is thinkier than their other games, Hens. Thinkier than Hens for sure. Can't remember Coney too much, but I think it's thinkier than Coney as well, which is the bunny game. So way more to keep track of in terms of scoring in crops, but I liked it. I think it's a good game. I would definitely play this again, and I'm happy to add it to my collection of little rocket games. And I love that they're all the same size. Just really, really love that. So glad I picked this up at Essen. So that was crops. So let's move on. So I want to talk about Take Time again, because I know I talked about it in the last video and gave kind of a really crappy explanation of how that plays. And that was a review copy that I received from PAX Unplugged in my Asmodee goodie bag. So I played Take Time again recently at a 4-player account. And I will say it's more fun at a 4-player account than it is at a 2-player account, which is what I played originally. So we were playing the first 2 scenarios, the first 2 clocks from envelope 1, and I kind of messed up in putting down a card in a section, and it was just really funny. Like it, you know, I thought that everyone was angry at me. And so I was like, I'm sorry, I did that. Like, you know, I thought, you know, they would understand like what I was doing when I played a certain card in this one area. So this one area of the clock said that the total had to be between 8 and 12. And I played a number 7 there. And I thought that by doing that, I was actually doing a good thing. Like, oh, it's a 7. And now someone who has a low number can play a low numbered card there, because I played that number 7 face up. So I thought I was doing a good thing, but apparently not many people had low numbered cards in their hand, which then, you know, screwed everything up and we lost. We did not pass that test, thanks to me, but I think it made for a funny moment because they were all frustrated that I put a 7 down there when I thought I was actually doing a really good thing by putting a 7 there. So yeah, so I think it's way more fun at a higher player count. So I would recommend playing Take Time with at least 3 people, and definitely 4 if you can manage it. So again, as I mentioned before, I'm typically not a fan of these no communication games, these no communication cooperative games, but I actually like Take Time and I thought it was fun. So I just wanted to mention how I just played another 2 clocks of that at Millennium Games, because it was their Play Something New game this last Friday, and I enjoyed it. So I just thought I would mention that I think it's more enjoyable at a higher player count. So yeah, so that's another game I played recently. So let's move on. Another game I played recently, which I do not own, but I just want to quickly mention, is Thrones of Valeria, which is a 2022 game for 2 to 6 players, designed by Matt Jacobs, and the art is done by Demicho, and it's published by Daily Magic Games. This is a trick-taking game, and I really enjoyed it. So I played a 4-player game of this, and there's different suits in the game. So you have different suits of different colors, and the different numbers have different abilities. So when you play a card, you will do the ability that is listed on the card, and then whoever wins the trick at the end will score a certain number of coins. So they'll either have to give up coins based on where a certain stone is on this like board, or they'll gain coins. So they'll gain coins or they'll have to pay coins. I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a lot of fun. So I just wanted to mention it that, you know, typically I'm not a huge trick-taking fan. Like I like trick-taking games, but I really suck at them typically. But in this game, I thought I was doing well, and I was doing well. So then everyone started stealing coins from me because obviously the person at the end with the most coins will win. So because I was doing so well, people were stealing coins from me, and then in the end, I ended up with like a low amount of coins, which really sucked because I was doing so well. But I really enjoyed it. So anyway, the finishing scores were 27, 28, 22, and then me with 18. But again, I was doing well, but then people messed me up. But I really enjoyed it. So if you like trick-taking games, I just wanted to quickly mention it as one that people should check out. It's one that I would actually be inclined to add to my collection, because this is like a trick-taking game that I feel like I really understood well and did well in. And there's these like stones on a board, and you can manipulate the position of the stones and certain tricks if you don't have a card to follow suit, but you play a card of suit that for which the stone on the board is in a higher position than the dominant suit that was led with, then you can still win the trick, and then it's cool. I just really like it. So yeah, so I think it's worth checking out if you like trick-taking games. So just wanted to mention that quickly. So anyway, let's move on. So I haven't received anything recently. I think I just received a couple production copies of games that I had covered for Kickstarter. I received my production copy of Ada's Dream. I don't think I've shown that in a video here. And then I think I received, well, I know I received Tend, my production copy of Tend, which was the Deluxe All In, and I think I showed that in a video here. I cannot remember, but I did receive that. That was really cool. It's a really, really big box. Like it won't even fit like up here. So yeah. And in terms of culling with my trip coming up and work being really busy, I haven't added more games to the calling pile. I will pick a winner for last week's giveaway and just leave a comment under the person who wins. I'll use a random number generator and assign each person a number, and then I'll pick a winner that way. But if you want to wait until I add more games to the calling pile before you receive your game, before I decide, well, before you decide I ship it to you, because you're paying for shipping, then you can wait until I add more games to the calling pile. I do have a few culling piles created already, and I already know I owe some people photographs of those piles, and then they can decide when they want their prize shipped and stuff in case they want to purchase anything. So that's stuff I still have to do, but I don't anticipate having another giveaway before I leave for Iraq. But then once I come back, I want to try to do them on a more regular basis, ideally at least once a month. Anyway, so let's just move on. I mean, I haven't given a cat update in a while. I don't think that there's much to say except that it's winter time, and it makes me really, really sad when it's winter because I think about all the poor cats being outside, and I hate it when I'm inside and cozy, wrapped up in a blanket, and I'm thinking about all the poor animals that are outside and suffering in the cold and in the snow and ice, and the fact that, they really have to time their food and water intake around when people like me go to feed them and give them fresh, warm water, because the water is going to freeze overnight and turn into a solid block of ice. During winter time, it takes me much longer to take care of these cats because I'm clearing off snow from their feeding stations, removing ice from the water bowls, and, doing all of that. And I always try to make their food warm. So what I do is I put the canned food in front of heaters. And so by the time I go to feed the cats, the canned food is actually warm, because the wet food will freeze. Wet food can freeze pretty easily. They like warm wet food in the winter time. So I always put those in front of heaters and leave those in front of heaters for a long time before I go and take care of the colonies. And then of course the water is of course warm as well. So they really like it. It's like, I feel like it's probably them like drinking tea, like warming up with warm water. So, but eventually it's going to freeze. So it just makes me really sad for the cats in the winter time. And anyone who is concerned about the cats, I do have a friend who is going to cover for me at both colonies while I'm gone, because typically I have my sister cover for me, but since this is a family trip to Iraq, she can't cover for me because she's going as well. So thankfully someone who, is nice, very kindly offered to take care of the cats while I'm gone. They will be feeding them at a different time during the day, but hopefully the cats will adjust. They're going to be feeding them very early in the morning rather than in the afternoon like I do. But, again, hopefully the cats will adjust and be fine for those 2 weeks that I'll be gone. I'm going to be thinking about them a lot while I'm gone. Like, I worry about them like they're my own pets. Like, I really do. And, when I'm not away on a trip, my schedule is basically planned around them. Like everything I do, I think about them and feeding them and taking care of them and making sure that I fulfill the self-imposed obligation that I have to them, so they're always on my mind. So, and I know when I'm in Iraq, I'll be thinking about them all the time, knowing that they're here in the winter time, hoping that, they're doing okay without me. They get really excited when they see me, and they'll even rub against my leg. Like the other day, a cat who had never rubbed against my legs before rubbed against my legs. And that made me so happy. I was like, oh my God, it just made me really happy. So I'll be thinking about them a lot. And of course I'll be thinking and being really sad about all the stray animals that I'll see in Iraq. I don't think that there's anyone watching this from Iraq, but if you are, or if you've been there and you know of any animal rescue organizations there that I can call if I ever see an animal in need, then please let me know, because I'm really worried about how sad I'm going to be when I'm there and see animals in need. And if I don't have the ability to help them, then that will just make me utterly depressed. Like, I just can't see an animal in need and not do something to help them, because I know that the vast majority of people in this world don't. Like, I know that the vast majority of people in this world, when they see an animal in need, think to themselves, someone else will do it, rather than being the someone themselves. And that just pisses me off. Like, it pisses me off that people like me have so much, feel such a burden to take care of as many animals as they can, knowing that there's so many people who just don't do their part to help animals. And if everyone did their part, if everyone who is capable of helping helped animals, it would take off, you know, so much stress from people like me, who do, you know, go above and beyond and sometimes, you know, step up to do things when they're already at capacity in terms of, you know, helping. So yeah, so I wish more people would step up. I wish the world had more selfless and caring people in it rather than selfish and so on. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I babbled on. But yeah, I just wanted you guys to know that the cats will be taken care of while I'm gone. So in case you were worried about that, I was worried about that too. And I would never, ever, ever go somewhere without making sure that they're taken care of. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, let's move on. So in this week's Fiction Book Club, we were supposed to read chapters 5 and 6 of the Dollar a Gut Dream Making District. So we're definitely more than halfway through now. So I'm going to try to remember what chapters 5 and 6 were. So 5, I think, was about the different kinds of senses and how you can you have ingredients to dreams. So I feel like we're learning more about how dreams are created, and different dreams have different ingredients, and you learn that you can add sensations, I guess that's what they're called, like, you know, the tactile sensation, the sense of smell, taste, I guess. I don't think taste was mentioned, but smell was mentioned. But tactile, I think that that's really interesting. So, you know, when I have dreams, I definitely feel like in my dreams I can sense touching, right? So touching is something I can sense in a dream. I cannot sense smell in a dream. I've never because I have extremely vivid dreams. I don't think I've ever had a dream where I feel like I'm smelling something and I can then actually smell it. Like, that's never happened for me. And then tasting, likewise, never happened. So I feel like the only sense that this actually makes sense for is tactile, like touching and feeling. But for those of you who are watching and who also dream, let me know if you've ever smelled in a dream. Because as this chapter correctly discusses, smell is a very big, what's the word? Like, it brings back memories, right? So smell is a big trigger of memories. And I think it's one of the biggest triggers of memories, if I remember correctly. Like, once you associate a smell with something and you then smell that thing in the future, you will be like flooded with memories of a certain thing that you associated that smell with. So for me, for example, exhaust fumes. Like, I love the smell of exhaust fumes because it makes me think of the Middle East and Pakistan and other places I visited when I was really, really little. So as soon as I get that whiff of exhaust fumes, I'm like transported to like the Middle East or South Asia, and I love it. so yeah, so that's crazy, maybe, I know, but I love it. So, you know, different smells will really trigger different memories for you. So that was an interesting part of this chapter. I thought that, you know, the different senses. And again, you know, I like how the author uses different names for the different dream makers that kind of are associated with the dreams that they make. I don't know who on earth would want these dreams that are like kind of apocalyptic but not really enjoyable. So as this chapter kind of correctly says at one point, like, people want to be seen as the hero of a dream. They don't want to be like, you know, stuck in this apocalyptic dream where they aren't really doing anything and they're just simply scared. Like, yeah, I don't know who would want that. But then I think it's interesting when those dream makers, they kind of come together in the end and decide that they'll make a dream that, you know, will be a collaboration between them. I think this author is just so creative in the way that she thinks about dreams and writes. It's just very, very creative. Like, I don't think I ever could have written something like this, but I'm glad that she did. Yeah, so that's what I remember most from that chapter. And then the next chapter, I think that was the one with the guilt powder, right? So one of the ingredients you can have in dreams is guilt. And when I was reading this, I was thinking a lot about my own guilt and dreams that I have that are associated with guilt, which I'm pretty sure are guilt dreams. So I think I've talked about this before, but like, one of the reoccurring dreams I have is of my previous cat, Dobby, who I consider to be my soul cat. I've had cats before Dobby, and I also have dreams that are associated with one of the cats that I had before Dobby when I was a child, and that cat was an indoor-outdoor cat, and he one day went missing and just never came home, and I have dreams associated with guilt about him never coming home. And you know, I still pray for him every day, but that was like such a long time ago, like when I was a child. But he was also a tuxedo cat, by the way. But the guilt dreams I have with Dobby, so when Dobby was sick with cancer, I'm to this day, you know, still guilt-ridden about the fact that I made him go through surgery, and then he was really unwell after surgery, even though the doctor said he might have another 4 months to a year. And from the time I brought him home, he didn't even last a week before he died. So I have these guilt dreams where in my dreams, instead of being sick and dying, he goes on to live for like a really long time. So I have these dreams, these reoccurring dreams where Dobby, after his surgery, instead of dying, he becomes miraculously really healthy and just lives a long time, and it just makes me really happy. So I think that those are guilt dreams. I don't know. I think that they're guilt dreams, and trying to kind of make me feel less guilty. I don't know. But I do feel guilty. So, you know, whenever I pray, I always pray for forgiveness and ask God to let Dobby know how sorry I am, and that, you know, if I could go back in time, I would have done things differently. And now I know better for my current cats that, you know, if God forbid they get cancer, not to put them through a miserable surgery and instead just have to say goodbye and let them go. Like, now I know that. Anyway, I went off on a total tangent here, but you know, the fact that, you know, they have ingredients, and I like how Santa Claus is making these cookies and putting these you know, putting guilt powder into these cookies, and then that horrible couple comes and steals all those cookies and then feels guilty. And I'm so glad. Like, I really enjoyed that part. Like, that couple is just so freaking awful. I'm like, so I really enjoyed Nicholas making these cookies, and the fact that he, you know, oh, and I thought it was really interesting that they have like a trade commission or whatever in this book, and they're like, oh, but are you sure you want to, you know, make these cookies and then not list the ingredients because that's violating the Federal Trade Commission or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, I think the author has put so much thought into dream making that I wouldn't have thought of, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, so that's what I remember about these two chapters. And then I think, you know, it ends with them basically saying that they're going to have a big pajama festival. So interested in what that's going to be like, but, you know, still really enjoying this book, and will be sad once it's over, of course. But for next time, why don't we read... You know, I'm wondering if we should just finish it, because then otherwise there will be a long break before we end up finishing it, because next week's video will be the last video before I go to Iraq, and then there won't be a video for like 3 weeks minimum. So should we just finish the whole book? So let me know what you think if you're reading along, but this is how much would be left if we decide to finish it. So I think that maybe we should just finish it, and then after I come back from Iraq, we can decide on another book together, maybe. Let me know what you think. But yeah, let me know, you know, your thoughts about this, these two chapters in the comments below, and yeah, what you found interesting and whether you can relate to any of these chapters this week. And then let me know if you just want to finish the whole book for next time. So yeah, so that was Fiction Book Club. So let's move on. So before we start talking about the Iran book this week, the nonfiction book, I just want to mention a book that I picked up recently, yesterday in fact, because it was on sale at a local indie bookstore. So it's 20% off. So it's called No Neutrals There, U.S. Labor, Zionism, and the Struggle for Palestine, excuse me. So this looks really interesting, and I am really interested in reading this at some point. So it says that it is the definitive history of the U.S. labor movement's complicity in Zionist settler colonialism, and a call for today's labor militants to organize in solidarity with Palestinians. And one of the people who gives like a little snippet review of this book is Elan Papp, who's, you know, an author who we've already read one of his books. The author of this is a labor historian and assistant professor at the Harry Van Arsdale Jr. School of Labor Studies, SUNY Empire State. So I think that this would be a really interesting read if anyone else wants to read this. for a nonfiction book club in the future. Let me know if that sounds like something that you would be interested in as well. I also do think that we should read that one book that I've mentioned before, Someday They Will All Have Been Against This. I don't remember if that's the exact title, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So that's another book I would think would be a good read for our nonfiction book club as well. So I just wanted to mention these two books before I get into Iran for this week. So let me know your thoughts about those in the comments below. So for this week's nonfiction, we were supposed to finish chapter 8, which is the Reza Shah and the Pahlavi Order chapter. And I know I am the worst, and I've just been taking forever to read this book. It's like going very, very slowly, and there's still so much left. But anyway, so I actually didn't finish reading the second half of this chapter. I got through most of it, so I'll probably end up stopping where I didn't finish. So maybe not most of it, maybe like more like half of it, but you know, whatever I didn't finish, hopefully I'll finish, and then I can just, you know, say a little bit about that in the beginning of the next time I do a book club, nonfiction book club. So the second half of this chapter started on page 472, at least where we were supposed to start, and that's refashioning a cultural identity. So here we see how Reza Shah is really focusing on, you know, forming this Persian identity that's really tied to ancient Persian history, to make it, you know, to give people, Persian people, something to be really proud of, and do away with all of the Islam that came and the ties to Arabic culture or the language and the religion. So, you know, he's focused really on, you know, tying Iran to their ancient times, and that goes through, you know, that means for language as well. So you'd see him, you know, so you see all this discussion about language where they're trying to do away with words that have Arabic roots and trying to focus on words that have, like, you know, ancient Persian roots and so on. As someone who has studied, I haven't studied ancient Iranian languages, but I've studied Old Persian. And yeah, and Old Persian is different than modern spoken Persian. Like, if you cannot really truly understand Old Persian literature when you're reading it unless you've been trained to translate it properly. Like, even a word that appears often in modern spoken Persian, the way it appears in Old Persian is different. So as someone who has studied Old Persian to be able to translate some of those older works, I can tell you it's not easy, and it's not easy like modern spoken Persian. But anyway, so this, you know, so this, here we have this king who's just trying to do away with Islamic influences on the language and the culture and so on. So yeah, what else? Yeah, you know, there's a lot of names that are mentioned here. One thing that I thought was interesting was how, you know, the Persians are trying to make it seem like Avicenna, Ibn Sina, was Persian, whereas his identity was contested in neighboring countries. You know, so there's people who are saying that he was Turkish, that he was Central Asian, that he was Arab, and so on. So that was just interesting that everyone just wanted to claim Avicenna, Ibn Sina, as their own. So yeah, so moving on, I highlighted stuff, but I'm always like, what should I talk about? I don't know. So yeah, then we get to this one person, so Mohammed Ghazvini. So yeah, yeah, so here it says, they're talking about some pre-Islamic stuff, and then blah, blah, blah. And then it says, this Orientalist scholarship and the state support for new archaeological expeditions emphasized the Achaemenid Empire of the 6th to 4th centuries BCE as Iran's moment of civilizational inception, and the Zoroastrianism revival of the Sasanian era and late antiquity as a moment of rebirth. So again, what I just talked about, trying to reframe Iran as, and shape it as being this culture that has ties to this ancient civilization and do away with the Islamic stuff. So it says, a history of ancient Iran struggled to bridge the ancient past to the Islamic past by reconciling the Shahnameh legends with modern archaeology. Blah, 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 Greek and Latin texts and Western scholarship. Yeah. I remember reading something about that, because the Safavids, who brought so much beauty and culture to Iran, were Muslims. So the Safavid Empire was an Islamic empire, and it brought some of the most beautiful buildings to Iran, the most beautiful Iranian miniature paintings. You know, when you go to Iran and you see the architecture from the Safavid period, the art from the Safavid period, it's stunning and it's beautiful. And I don't know how, personally, you can separate that from Islam. You can't. Like, Islam is present very much so in this architecture and art. Like, when you study, and I've, you know, written papers, like when I was an undergrad, I was very interested in Islamic architecture. So when I took an art history course, I compared Islamic architecture in Iran and Turkey and talked about, you know, the similarities and the differences and how they tied to their own cultures and so on. Like, I've always been interested in this kind of stuff. And then again in grad school, I actually ended up focusing in on Iran and Turkey as well. And I have no ties to Turkey, but just very interested in Turkey. But anyway, so yeah, so you can't really separate Islam from the Safavid Empire. But here you have a Shah who's clearly trying to do that because he wants, you know, to just do away with anything that is Islamic. So here in the section Unraveling an Ancient Pact, it says awareness of Zoroastrianism and revival of the ancient Iranian memories incited a challenge to the whole project of Pahlavi secularism on the side of the Shia clerical establishment, which of course is going to do. And then I highlighted a lot here because I found this interesting, being a Shia Muslim, of course. Yeah, let's see. So there's, you know, they're talking about a pact between religion and, you know, good government and bad government and so on. And then it says here, the secularizing agenda, conceived and enforced largely by the Pahlavi cultural elite and overseen by the Shah himself, further eroded an ancient social accord that tied, at least in theory, the good government with the good religion, the inseparable twins as they were known to classical authors. The unraveling of this pact, an inevitable outcome of the state's secularizing policies, proved more potent than subduing the tribal countryside or keeping at bay European imperial ambitions. Thought that was interesting. But then you see that there's various protests happening because obviously the Shias are not happy with this, the ulama are not happy with this. And then apparently there was a compulsory unveiling of women. So, you know, as someone who does not believe in compulsion in either direction, this made me unhappy. Like, just like you should not force women to wear hijab, you should not force women to remove their hijab for those who want to wear it. So I am 100% against a compulsory unveiling, just as I am 100% against a forced hijab, obviously. But there were protests against the unveiling, the forceful unveiling of women. Yeah, so, you know, you learn more about how the Shia institution is kind of being eroded a little by little. Yeah. Yeah, the nationalist narrative, moreover, marginalized and even belittled the experience of Iranian Shiism as an unfortunate historical aberration and affliction. And here's what I was talking about. The role of Shiism in the rise of the Safavids and as an important element of national identity was downplayed. It was valued and thus tolerated for being part of the Iranian identity that set it apart from the Arab and Turkish Sunnis. So, you know, being Shia is valued for basically setting apart Persians from Arabs and Turks. Like, that is one thing that I've noticed even from Persians who are not religious and have kind of a disdain for religion. Like, even they will kind of take pride in the fact that their Islam is different from the Islam of the vast majority of Arab countries or the Turks. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, oh, this really pissed me off. The Pahlavi state even went on to demolish the magnificent Taqi Daulat, a visible example of the Qajar tribute to Shiism. When I went to Iran, which was so long ago now, I really need to go back soon. I remember how much Persians just do not like the Qajars, and that includes like the art and architecture from the Qajar period. So maybe most Iranians are happy about this. I don't know what that building looked like. I need to look it up before it was demolished, obviously. But, you know, the fact that you're just trying to do away with these beautiful, or maybe it was ugly, but still, I'm sure it was better looking than some modern building they put in its place. Like, it just makes me sad when old buildings get destroyed for ugly modern buildings. Yeah, oh, here's something that I found interesting. So yeah, and then it says, and from the modernist perspective, there was plenty to be critical of. The clergy's outmoded demeanor, their pseudo-Arab-sized accent denoting their pride in long years of study in Najaf, their obsession with ritual purity and pollution, and above all, their aversion to all things Western. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty accurate. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah. So one thing I found interesting then was the discussion on law and how, as they're trying to develop their new system of law in this country, what they're keeping from Islamic law and what they're trying to borrow from Western law that they've learned in other places. And this part I highlighted because I thought that this was interesting. The practice of law within a regulated judicial framework was held ransom by the ambiguities of the Sharia, contradictory interpretations of the mujtahids, the vagaries of their verdicts, arbitrary court procedures, and the jurist's notorious propensity for corruption and bribe taking. You know, and then going further to talk about how with the new law that they were hoping to establish, you know, they're going to give more rights to women and do this and do that. So I always want to go back to the point that Islamic governments do not represent Islam as it should be represented. And that's why I take issue with Islamic governments, because a lot of them do give Islam a bad name because they're not accurately representing Islam and giving people the rights that they deserve. So for example, had Iran's government today, you know, I'm sure we'll learn about this later on, but after the Islamic Revolution took place, now, you know, Iran's government claims to be following Sharia, it claims to be an Islamic government, and so on, and blah, 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 blah. But is it really? No, because, you know, they don't give religious minorities the rights that they deserve. You know, women may not have all the rights that they deserve in Iran, and so on and so forth. Islam itself gives women a lot of rights, which I've talked about previously in videos, talking about the millet system that existed during the Ottoman period, where women, Jewish women and Christian women, would opt to go to Muslim courts because Muslim courts were giving women more rights than Jewish courts and Christian courts at the time, because women in Islam do have a right to inheritance, they have a right to work, they have a right to choose their own partner to marry, and so on. Like, women have lots of rights in Islam, which unfortunately, when you have Islamic governments, do not follow the religion properly and do not give women all the rights that they deserve. So here there is going to be some discussion about how they want to do away with certain things that, you know, were in place and try to give women more legal rights and so on and so forth. Yeah, and that's kind of where I ended. So the next part of this chapter talks about the dress code, the unveiling, and the clerical predicament, which I am interested in reading about. So I will finish this chapter because actually I have like 15 pages to go. So not too little, but not too much. So I do want to finish it so that I can get to that and maybe talk a little bit about that in next week's video. But if you did read it, please let me know what you thought in the comments below and what stood out to you and what you found interesting, any parallels today as usual, and so on and so forth, because I do think that, you know, there's a lot to be learned from history. So it's important to read history books because, you know, you don't want to repeat mistakes that were made, and you can learn from the past. So the next chapter is going to be chapter 9, which is chaotic democracy, oil nationalization, and denied hopes. And this will lead us up to the Mossadegh, the overthrowing of Mossadegh. So this is all going to be important for when we get to the really good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean like stuff that's more modern and really explains why Iran's government is the way it is today. So chapter 9 goes from page 502 to page, eek, it's long, 561. That is long, dude. A part of me was like, let's just do the whole thing, but knowing me, you know I can't do that. I'm just not that good. Okay, so why don't we read up to page 528, and then that's about halfway because there's a break on page 528. Or should we, let me just pull up a calculator so I can do this a little bit better, in fact, because what if it was 531 instead? So 31, I'm just trying to find what's the more halfway point. Yeah, that might be better actually. Let's read up to page 531 because there's a break on page 531. I think that that's probably a better spot to stop because then, yeah, that's more even. So why don't we read up to the page and the break on page 531. So stop just before the oil crisis and political reform. I think that that makes the most sense. I was, thinking of maybe being ambitious and being like, let's just read the whole chapter for next time, because then I know there's going to be a long break before I come back from Iraq and, we get to the next half. But you're always welcome to read ahead of me, and you probably are. Like, I've just been really slow at this book, and I apologize. Let me know if you're still interested in finishing this book. Like, if you're like, wow, Sarah, you're just taking forever with this, let's just go back to Palestine because you were much quicker with that. The books on Palestine were just easier reading too. So I think that that's part of it. But let me know your thoughts about everything. Let me know your thoughts about the chapter. Let me know your thoughts about what the reading should be for next week. And let me know your thoughts about finishing this book. Like, I feel like we should finish it because, we started it, and it would be good for us to at least get to the Islamic Revolution, obviously. So just let me know your thoughts about all of that in the comments below. And again, I'm sorry for being such a slow poke with this book. All right, so let's move on. So I don't have too much to say in this week's rant of the week. I know I always say that and then it ends up being long, so we'll see if that's actually the case. But I just want to talk about a thread I saw on Blue Sky recently that was made by someone who said that they saw a post in a group that I was banned from a few years ago. So I was banned from the media and content creators group on Facebook for no reason a couple years ago. So I don't know what the comment was on Facebook or what the thread was on Facebook, but there was a thread on Blue Sky that Suzanne Sheldon retweeted about AI art in board games, and it's just beating the same horse to death again. Talking about like whether you should be covering games that feature AI art, or whether you should have a hard line and say, no, I'm never covering games that feature AI art, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So here is this long discussion yet again for like the millionth time about whether content creators should cover games that have AI art in them. Okay. AI art is bad when it's in games because obviously it takes away money from artists, and it's stealing art from different artists to make something, so there's been a whole discussion about that. I'm not going to have that whole discussion right now. So I can see why people would be against it. But what people should also be against is supporting games that are from Zionist publishers. Yet we have yet to see a single fucking thread about that. I seem to be the only person in this industry who talks about how there are fucking Zionist publishers and designers and people should be boycotting them. And that reminds me, I just found out recently that Our Family Plays Games finally did block me on Blue Sky. I mean, I called them out a few times. They never responded to my tweets on Blue Sky, but they finally ended up blocking me because I guess no one likes being called a fucking hypocrite for supporting Zionists and claiming to be about human rights. So Our Family Plays Games is still sponsored by a Zionist publisher and promotes their games and has their games prominently displayed right behind them in every video. You can see all the kids' table board gaming games on the shelf behind them. So yes, they should be ashamed, as should be any content creator who creates games from this fucking Zionist publisher. So where are the threads talking about Zionism? Like, I guarantee you, if there were anti-trans publisher, people would be like, boycott that publisher. Like, that publisher is, really bad. Don't play any games from them. Don't promote their games. So no fucking different. Here you have a Zionist publisher who is in support of killing Palestinians, and people will still happily play their games and happily promote their games. And I've gone through in my videos before showing you all the different content creators who are perfectly fine with promoting games from this fucking publisher. So it's, you know, it's still infuriating that the genocide is ongoing, and this is still not a topic of discussion. It never will be, because no one fucking cares about Arabs and Muslims in this industry. One thing that I don't know if I talked about, so I noticed recently on TikTok that one board game content creator who I've mentioned before, Curvin, 4Y Games on TikTok. I've called him out several times for his hypocrisy and silence about the genocide, and, you know, for being besties with someone who's, you know, followed Charlie Kirk and was really upset about Charlie Kirk dying. Like, that friendship makes no fucking sense to me. Like, you're a gay Filipino man, and here you are perfectly fine being friends with someone who followed Charlie Kirk, this racist, homophobic, etc., so on, whatever. Makes no sense to me, but I guess that's not my problem. So anyway, so this content creator recently made a video about how difficult it is for BIPOC creators to become popular, and he focused mostly on TikTok and was looking at subscriber numbers. And so he listed all the people who are BIPOC who have a following of 10,000 or more on TikTok, and so these are the people he listed, and it also includes himself. And it's a small number, right? So number one, I will say I know why I don't have a large following on TikTok, and I don't attribute it to me being a minority. I mean, partly, I suppose I can, but I didn't really start making posts on TikTok about the genocide until 2023, like when, you know, October 7th happened, and I started, you know, posting more about Palestine and things like that. So I don't attribute me having a low following on TikTok to that, because I always had a low following on TikTok. Like, I never considered it to be my primary platform, even though I was the first person in the board game industry who started making overview videos on TikTok, which I know is ironic considering my very low following there. But the problem is that even though I was like the first one, I never actually, you know, used any of the trends on TikTok. I never use any trending audios in my videos. I just do, you know, straight out overviews without any frills. There's no like humor, because I'm not a funny person. So there's like no jokes embedded in my overviews and things like that. So, you know, I know why I don't have a high following on TikTok. So I don't attribute it to me being a minority, a BIPOC creator. I attribute it to me just not, using the trends and so on. But if I did use the trends and I, you know, did all of that stuff, and I wasn't so problematic by calling out people for their hypocrisy about their silence on the genocide, then maybe I'd have more followers. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. But I just thought it was interesting how the BIPOC creators who he has listed, one of them is someone who I have no respect for, Board and Shield, who is a Muslim South Asian content creator who as I mentioned before on this channel, I reached out to early on when the genocide began, because he was doing a live stream with a Zionist, and someone who basically was posting stuff about how we should all pray for Israel and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing a live stream with a Zionist for? And he's like, oh, I keep politics and board gaming separate. I'm not going to bring that to my account and blah blah blah. And it's like, bullshit. Like, I have no respect for him whatsoever. I have no respect for someone who's, you know, really focused on gaining a lot of popularity in this industry, who is from a marginalized background, but does nothing to help the people of his background. Like, fuck you. Like, seriously, just fuck you. I have no respect for him whatsoever. I think that if you are a BIPOC creator or from a marginalized background, whether that's, you know, LGBTQ+, whatever, that, yeah, you should be using your platform if you have a large following to help people like you. But is Board and Shield doing that? Of course not. Of course he's not doing that. He's what I call a fucking coconut. Brown on the outside, white on the inside. You know, people like him, I think, are people who just so desperately want to be accepted that they will just, you know, turn out to be traitors to their own kind, and just not do anything to support their own kind. So have no respect for him, and haven't since 2023. Like, fuck him. And at one point, a few months ago, I saw him looking at my stories on Instagram and still staying completely dead silent about the genocide. And then I made a story on Instagram being like, hey, if you're a South Asian Muslim content creator with a big following in board games and you haven't called out the genocide and you see me looking and you're looking at my stories, I see you looking at them and shame on you. And after I posted that in my stories, he didn't look at my stories ever again. He knows what he's doing and he should be fucking ashamed of himself, in my opinion. So yeah, so, you know, I will continue to call out these people and, you know, just point out how some people in this industry really fucking suck. And even if they are of a Muslim background, like I've routinely called out Muslims in this industry who I feel like are doing a disservice to people like me who want for Muslims and Arabs and South Asians to be considered as equals as the rest of the content creators, to get the same opportunities as other content creators. But people like me, especially me, never will, because I'm considered problematic for pointing out these, you know, inconsistencies in the industry, the double standards, the hypocrisies, and so on. So yeah, so I'll never be someone who gets opportunities like Board and Shield does, but he's a fucking coconut and a traitor to his people. So yeah, so obviously, but you know, I'm not saying that's why he has 10,000 followers. He has probably a lot of followers because his content is funny and engaging. But yeah, so anyway, you know, I just wanted to say that, you know, even if I made trending content now, I don't think I would gain that number of followers for being as problematic as I am. So yeah, so am I ever going to get the same kinds of opportunities as these people? No. But anyway, going back to For Why Games, one thing I think I forgot to mention was that back in October, when he made this video about diversity in board gaming, and I called him out on it because in the beginning of this video, he says how marginalized people only focus on their own groups in this community and ignore other marginalized groups and so on. So I was like calling the kettle black, like, you know, you're saying that there's people who do this, but you yourself do this. Like, I've never once seen you talk about, you know, the genocide and how it's impacting Arabs and Muslims in the board game industry. So that comment disappeared. And then I made another comment and I said like, hey, you know, like, why did my comment disappear? Blah, blah, blah. And then someone who I don't even know who this person is, but apparently follows me on TikTok, just some white mediocre looking dude, welcome to boredom. He responded and said, Curvin didn't delete your comment. It was taken down due to the amount of reports it received. Curvin is a vital person on board game TikTok. This small niche community on this app is a tight-knitted group. We are aware of your ill and misinformed comments about Curvin and do not appreciate such slander of an important person in this community. I was included among the many who reported you, so please stop harassing our friend. I didn't notice this comment until much later. So Essen had already passed by the time I noticed this comment. So the video is from before Essen. I had posted my comment about my original comment disappearing, I think on October 10th or something. Welcome to boredom responded on October 16th. And then I responded to him on October 29th because so much time had passed. I didn't even realize that he had commented. So then I basically, you know, respond to his bullshit comment and say, like, number one, you don't know what slander is. Like, show me where I've slandered Curvin. Like, when have I ever said something that's not true? Like, okay, please show me that. And then I said, if you care so much about marginalized community, there is no one more marginalized than Arabs and Muslims right now. So you and your tight-knit community's tokenism is very evident, and I'll continue to call out people with double standards, blah, blah, blah. And then I said they're not misinformed comments, and, you know, if they're true. And then I said, prove me wrong. Show me one video where he talks about Palestine. So I was 100% accurate in saying that he's never talked about the genocide. And then I said, it's harassment to call out people for never speaking out about a genocide while claiming to be for diversity. Okay, which is why Arabs/Muslims know these claims about being inclusive are complete bullshit. I don't know if this person has their notifications on or not and whether they saw these responses, but never responded, but that does not fucking surprise me. But one thing I did take away from his comment is that people do talk. So they apparently have this tight-knit community on TikTok where they all talk, and Curvin is such a vital part of this community and blah, blah, blah. So they all talk and support each other's double standards and hypocrisy and silence about the genocide. And I, as usual, am seen as a problematic one for calling it out. Like, where the fuck is the inclusivity? Like, you are making video after video after video. You have your whole profile, your whole platform built on building up diversity and standing for inclusivity and standing up for marginalized people. Yet every single time I've called him out on not making a single comment or video about Palestine, completely ignores it, has never once addressed it. Like, what fucking bullshit is this? Like, these people are just such fucking hypocrites. Like, honestly, like, how can they not see that? Like, when I look in the mirror, you know, if I do something wrong, I know I've done something wrong. Like, where is this sense, you know, these people's sense of, you know, accountability? Do they have no conscience whatsoever? Like, I just do not understand these people. I really don't understand these people at all. And they infuriate me. It infuriates me that this group, this tight-knit group on TikTok, thinks that they're doing such important and good work when they're so clearly ignoring one of the biggest atrocities of our time. And why are they ignoring it? Because it would cost them opportunities. And they fucking know that. They fucking know it would cost them opportunities if they start calling out the genocide. So yeah, so they are just fucking sellouts. They only care about, you know, making sure that they don't lose opportunities. They will only speak up about issues that are safe to fucking speak about. Like, these people are not, you know, the flag bearers of diversity and inclusivity in this community, because they are fucking hypocrites and have double standards. And yeah, it's just so fucking infuriating. I just don't understand these people. Like, yeah, please make this person a vital part to your community when he just clearly has shown, you know, that he doesn't fucking care about Arabs and Muslims and the genocide. Like, just, it's sick. It just, I'm just so angry. I hate these people so fucking much. I just really, really hate them. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to point out, because I don't think I ever talked about those comments. And yeah, since coming back from SN, things were really busy and I don't think I talked about those. So I just thought I would mention them and show you how people realize deep down inside that they are silent and that they are hypocrites, but they will continue to support each other because, you know, it makes them feel good and they have their tight-knit community and they can all be proud of themselves and pat themselves on the back and blah, 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 blah. Like, I fucking hate all of this fakeness in this industry. It's just utter fucking bullshit. I recently made a post on Instagram where, because I have an iPhone will routinely make these videos for me, like trips down memory lane, where it'll take photos from a certain weekend and like make a video out of it, add some music to it. So I did this for PAX Unplugged in 2019, which was my second PAX ever. The first PAX I ever attended was in 2018, which I think was PAX's second year, PAX Unplugged's second year, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so it made this video for 2019 when I went to PAX Unplugged, and I went with my sister, met up with a few friends there, and I just remember it being a really fun PAX Unplugged. And this was before I became a content creator. And I'm just, you know, thinking to myself, like, I had such a fun time there. And now when I go to conventions, I have fun, but not as much fun as I did back then. Not as much fun knowing that, you know, there's people in the industry who think I'm problematic, who think I'm the worst, who think I don't deserve to be there, who don't want to see me there, don't want to see me in their spaces, and so on and so forth. So I do think that when you are just a gamer and you are not privy to how shitty this industry really is, how it's filled with a bunch of fucking hypocrites, you are going to enjoy conventions a lot more. I sincerely do not enjoy conventions as much as I did before I became a content creator. Like, that I think is true. Like, before I became a content creator, had no idea that this industry is just so utterly anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, does not give a shit about people like that, only cares about themselves, claims to care about Black people, cares to claim about trans people, claims to care about LGBTQ plus people, whatever, all of that, because those are safe communities to care about. But the genocide, nope. Yeah, so don't really enjoy going to conventions knowing all of this. Like, yeah, knowing that there's people who get praised in this industry. And this was before I knew, like, you know, who certain, you know, this is when I was a board gamer. I was a hobby board gamer, but I wasn't like such a fanatic at this point in time that I could be like, I could name like 10 games by each of my favorite designers, or I could be like, this is my favorite designer. These are my top 10 favorite designers. Like I would look and see at the first look section which games I wanted to play, which ones looked interesting to me. I went and demoed Honey Buzz, which was being shown by Paul Solomon at the time. This is before that was even published, before that I believe even came out on Kickstarter, if I remember correctly. You know, so this is a time where I really just enjoyed playing games and had no clue how shitty this industry is. And if that's you, if you are someone who just enjoys playing games and has no clue how shitty this industry is, though if you watch my videos and if you watch the rants of the week, then you do know how shitty this industry is. But if somehow there's someone out there who doesn't, then yeah, good for them that they can still enjoy this hobby and enjoy games without knowing how shitty some people are. Like recently when a friend of mine found out about how Eric Lang has never once condemned the genocide, he literally threw away his copy of Blood Rage in the trash. And I was like, well, you didn't need to do that. You could have like sold it to someone. You could have donated it. He's like, no, it's trash. I had to throw it away. And I was like, okay, like more respect to you that you were so angry when I told you that Eric Lang has never once condemned the genocide that he just threw his copy of Blood Rage in the trash. That's a lot of integrity right there. Yeah. So anyway, so that's my rant of the week. It's just the same shit every week. It's the same shit. I'm not sure I have much else to say. I'm trying to think if anything else really happened. Oh, I guess this is more on a personal level, but someone I used to play board games with years ago, not like years ago, more like 2-3 years ago, turned out to be a really big MAGA person. At the time, was not clear that he would be a Trump supporter, but when Trump ran for re-election, he then went full-on Trumpster, and since then, every Facebook post he would make would show like what a full-on Trumpster he had become. He like clearly drunk the Kool-Aid and was posting a lot of like anti-Islamic stuff, was posting a lot of like anti-Muslim hate, was posting a lot of like hate towards other groups and so on and so forth. And then he made a post on Facebook which just, I was like, that's it. Like I'm unfriending and blocking you finally. Like I could even take the anti-Muslim post that he was making, but then he posted something, and I, as someone, a big animal rights activist, as someone who loves animals, this was like, this is just what sent me over the edge. So he made a post, and I'll post it here on, I'm blocking out his name because he's not like some big content creator or anything like that. He's just your average gamer. But he made a post basically calling Israel a beacon of humanity, morality, and all things good in this world. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and this is someone who sees every single Instagram story I post. So for the last 2 and whatever years that the genocide has been going on, in every single story I've posted, he has seen. He's always in the viewer list of every story I post. So yeah, so he also saw when I called him out for this shitty take on my Instagram stories. But yeah, this is what was like, no, that's it. Like, you're calling Israel a beacon of humanity because they are the first country to ban fur sales, supposedly. Don't know if that's true or not. I feel like that needs to be fact checked, first of all. But secondly, like, who the hell's gonna wear fur in Israel anyway? Like, it's in the Middle East. Like, you know, it's not like you're in the Arctic where people maybe could have a reason for wearing fur. But I'm 100% against people wearing furs, obviously. But like, to call Israel a beacon of humanity when you've been watching a genocide ongoing for over 2 years, like, no, fuck you, like, fuck that. So that is really what just sent me over the edge. And I was like, I need to finally unfriend and block this person on Facebook. Like, I just don't understand people. Like, people are so fucking stupid. It's like, I don't understand how people can be so fucking brainless. And yeah, so then I made stories and that were directed at him, and I was just like, please, for God's sake, just read a fucking book. Like, it'll blow your mind. Like, I doubt this person has ever picked up a nonfiction book in his entire life. And by the way, this is someone who asked me out on a date a few years ago, and I never gave him an answer because the answer was going to be no, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings at the time. But like, now I wish I had. Now I wish I had hurt his feelings because, like, no, I don't wish I had hurt his feelings, but like, seriously, like, what on earth were you even doing asking a Muslim woman out on a date when you do nothing now but post anti-Muslim hate and post shit like this. Like, I don't understand these people. I really don't I just fucking don't understand people like that. So yeah, I just wanted to rant about that. I know that that's more of a personal thing, but I just wanted to mention it because there's just so many people in this world that just infuriate me, and there's probably a whole shit ton of people like him in this world too. So yeah, so just, I hate people. Anyway, so yeah, so that's my rant of the week. So let's move on. So in this week's video, I talked about a lot of, okay, not a lot, more like 4 small box games, maybe 5 if you count Forest Shuffle, I don't know, but the box is a little bit bigger than the other boxes. But anyway, I wanted to know what are some of your favorite small box games, like, you know, just a lot of fun game, not even a lot of game, but a fun game that you really enjoy in a small box. And I'm also asking for selfish reasons. It would be great if it's a game that I have in my collection, because I'm also trying to figure out what to take on my Iraq trip with me. Do you take board games on vacations with you? Small games that would fit into a carry-on, that you can play in an airport or something like that. If so, please give me some recommendations in the comments below for what I should take to Iraq with me. Right now, I'm thinking I'm going to take Daydream, which is that one roll and write that I just became super obsessed with and absolutely love. And it's got dry erase boards, so I think it would be perfect. The box is a little bit bigger than I would like to take with me, but I think I can fit it in my carry-on. My sister has asked me to, bring some games that we can play in the airport and so on and so forth. But I feel like I want to take at least 1 or 2 more games with me as well. So if you have any suggestions on what I should take with me that, are easy to transport, and that will be a lot of fun to play and have good replay value for the trip, then please leave those suggestions in the comments below. And again, let me know what your favorite small box games are. And until next week, bye!